your brain and your second brain. You have this brain, and then you have your second brain is your gut. And I thought a lot about this before giving this to you, so I thought it would be interesting to notice how much goes on in our head and that it affects the rest of our body. But first, before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about what I do and why I chose this. I am a colon hydrotherapist, a nutritional coach, and a reflexologist. And about 29 years ago, I got really sick. I was 22 at the time. And they wanted to do a colon resection and a hysterectomy. And I was living in Houston at the time, and when I moved to San Antonio, we just scheduled the surgery for here, and they said, there's nothing really we can do for you. You need to change your lifestyle for one thing, and we're just going to do this. Well, at 22, I didn't think that was a very good idea. So I met this woman named Frances Sheldon in San Antonio, and she did something called colonics, and pure herb extracts, and reflexology and massage therapy, and it was very foreign to me. I was like, you want to do what to my what? I don't know anything about that. Why would you do that? But as I got to know her, and I was desperate. And most of us really start seeking things because we don't, we're looking and we're searching for something that's not going to be so offensive, I imagine. Anyways, she taught me all about colon hydrotherapy and reflexology and herbs and probiotics and things like that. Well, within 18 months, I had endometriosis and first stage cervical cancer. And that's what was going on in my body. There was other things too, but that was the main reason. The endometriosis closed off my bowel. I had all over. And so when they told me that, there was nothing else for them to do, but this lady, Frances Sheldon, helped me with colon hydrotherapy. And so I was so impressed with what that did for me that I wanted to get into this. And so I couldn't believe how something like that could help me, but between diet and proper eating, organic eating, and juicing, and clearing my intestine, and finding out what made me like that, brought me to this. And another thing is, one of the things that people spoke to me about, all the doctors spoke to me about, every woman in my died before they were 56 with some type of cancer. Now that was 28 years ago. Can you only imagine what it is now? And I brought this little chart. I thought this was important. 80% of bowel cancers are found in 2 areas. And I had the areas that were being affected. So I was going into that. And I thought the biggest thing I could do for everybody would be to help everyone that the things that happened to me, I could help my family and help everybody else. I wasn't going to school for this, interestingly enough. I was going to school for interior design. So when my life got stopped, and I am doing an interior design, just something totally different. So, I know it's getting late, so I'm going to make this short, and we'll open up. You guys can stop me and ask me questions if you want. In this, the first page, we're talking about complex and hidden brain in the gut. And everybody gets butterflies and cramps in their stomach and things like that. And isn't it interesting that we think it's all coming from here, but it's not. The gut actually has a mind of its own, their nervous system. And just like the larger brain in the head, researchers say that the system sends and receives impulses, records experiences, and responds to emotion. Its nerve cells are bathed and influenced by the same neurotransmitters. The gut can upset the brain just as the brain can upset the gut. What I found in my practice, when people come in to me for detoxification, I do a whole history on them, because that history tells me what's going on in their gut. They may not be talking about the gut, they don't know about the gut, but we talk about what's going on in their head too. Why is that so important to me? Because if I don't fix, not that I can fix the head, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but we can certainly find out what's going on in here so we can make this better and make the environment better so this starts getting better. So as you see, this is just a really good article that I thought would be really interesting. One of the areas in the very beginning is It says the research for these comment, and this, by the way, I wanted to comment about this. This was written in the New York Times in '96, so more than 12 years ago. And they have been doing studies on the colon and the brain for many years. And there's just something that we don't talk about. People talk more about sex than they do their colons. And, you know, I mean, it's just a fact. And so I'm thinking if we can get our brains healthier, we get our colon healthier, we can get our thinking better. So we won't have all these different diseases of the entire body. We can just start with the colon. And Norman Walker wrote a book called Colon Health, and it's called Colon Health by Norman Walker, and he states that death begins in the colon. Do you have a book?
Somewhere.
Yeah. It's really an interesting book. He wrote this book in, you know, I can't even remember, around the 40s and 50s, I think. Do you know?
I've heard him. I've seen his juicing books.
Yeah, I had the fortune of studying under one of his teachers. And it was amazing what the things that she could share with us and how important it was to keep colon health and proper probiotics, just like we do our dirt. When I was hearing him speak, I was like, hey, that's everything that we have to do in the gut. And so a couple things that I think is, anyways, you guys can read this article. I think you'll find it pretty fascinating. I don't want to go on and on because you guys can read it yourself, but the next section of it is food transit times. So, and the normal Western diet, we actually eat 8 or more, and believe me, being in my practice, it's a whole lot more than 8 meals. But there's 8 meals, minimally, that actually stays in our gut. So can you imagine how much stuff is stored up in here? And so the food we eat is vital, just like this gentleman was talking about. We need to make sure that we have the proper probiotics, the proper water, the proper oils, and the proper ingredients. And so if we have a mechanism running or fuel running in our body like that, then we will pass through within a short amount of time. But anyways, as you can see in this diagram, if you can imagine on Saturday eating, I don't know what this most, is everybody into health in here? Are you eating pretty healthy most of the time? No?
No.
So what have you found? If you eat something, usually men are so different than women, so this is great for a man. What do you find, what you're eating on Saturday? When do you, tell me about that. As far as, do you eat a hamburger or what do you eat?
Actually, I'm vegetarian, but a lot of soy products, I guess.
Soy products.
Right.
And so do you have to take digestive enzymes along with the soy product?
No, I take a multivitamin and that's about it.
Okay. And anybody a meat eater in here? So meat stays in the body, or it actually goes into the stomach and stays into the intestine well more than 18 hours.
Mine goes through me in 12 hours.
Does
It
it?
takes longer than 12 hours. It's very unusual.
Do you eat organic meat? Okay, so that is the exception. On a typical Western diet, though, and people that eat a lot of hamburgers and fast food, like we have a whole chain in here, I was thinking, this is great for Robin. She's pulling in from there. But anyways, that is great, because that way you don't have the chance of setting up an acid or an imbalance of acidity in your colon. And that's another thing we look at, is pH balancing. So the point is if it's staying in your stomach and small intestine too long, and then it's been getting pushed into the large intestine, which at this end right here where the small intestine is going into the large intestine, is called chyme. And when chyme sits and ferments and it starts building up into the colon, it brings a lot of acidity if it's too much or if it's fermented and stayed too long. It's a natural response, and we want that, but we don't want it to stay there for days and fermenting and then pushing up into the entire intestine and sitting there. How tall are you, sir? How tall are you?
6.
6 foot? So you have 6 foot of large intestine. So, and then times 5 of small intestine. So the reason I'm saying that is, can you only imagine how long, if you ate a poor diet, how long that would stay in that small intestine, and then building up into the large intestine and creating either a massive abdomen or fermentation of, no, I mean massive, and creating a dis-ease in the body. So when we can limit the amount of food that's going in, poor food choices, and allowing more organic foods to set up a good bacteria in there. Excuse me. So you need good bacteria in the small intestine and the large intestine. And so when we eat the proper foods like greens and good proper dairy products, goat products, and wheatgrass and things like that, and juicing, you will set up a good bacteria level in your stomach, small intestine, onto your large intestine. But if we're eating fried foods and lots of dried foods and processed food, you're setting it to be preserved in there and setting an acidic condition where you're setting diseases, a host or a home for disease. So we really want to go into having food no longer than 24 to 48 hours in our system.
You said dry foods?
Well, I should clarify.